The moment you start creating for approval instead of expression, your art begins to die. This subject is something that is personal to me and something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. And I've thought about this before. I had a point in my life where I didn't care what anyone thought. And I feel like I created my best art. And I'm trying to get back to that because I feel like in the past year, social media has again become like, I don't know, very oversaturated. There's so many different content creators and there's so much living out there that it's hard sometimes as a creative to create for yourself and to create the art, that really means something to you on top of all of this online internet stuff, because then, we're making art and we're posting it on Instagram. And so it's like this weird duality of still wanting to express and release your art, but then just posting it on these social media platforms. So it's really confusing. And I feel like, I guess we're going to somehow develop a way that artists still can create and put out things in a way that feels good to them. Maybe that's living on something else, I don't know. If anyone knows also of other platforms where you can post your art, that's why Tumblr was so cool, I think. And maybe there is still communities on Tumblr posting their art, but I just think it's really gotten confusing. And it's always like, you post something on Instagram and you want the validation, you want the likes, you want people to love what you're making. And then you feel like there's then a timestamp on that. Then you have like a deadline of like when you need to post your next piece or, whatever it is that you're creating, to like be in this race with yourself almost. And it comes down to the point of like, who are you creating for? Are you starting to create your art for what all of your followers are going to think, or if your piece is going to go viral? Because yeah. So that's just the introduction. I want to read part of an article that came out by Business of Fashion. Glenn Martins, who is the creative director of Margiela. I guess he's still a creative director of Diesel. Didn't know that. So he said recently, here's my Burberry case. This is not actual Burberry. It's just inspired by. Fashion has become much more consumption driven, so it has to be easier to be understood. We are consuming visuals and we don't really have the time to go deep into the clothes, the storytelling, the construction, where it comes from. It just needs to be a hit. It gets a bit more superficial. In 2025, a creative director has to be a socialite, has to be the king of social media. There's so many more things that all of my colleagues and I have to do outside of the runway, and then explode the internet with a show. So let's all be nice. The beauty of fashion is that it's a process. This is not happening in one show, so we need to respect that. It's true. Like what are we creating for? And on top of just creating a piece, so let's say you're making a painting, right? And you build a story for this painting and you put your heart and soul in making this piece and you spent all these hours on it. It's like, yeah, you can just post the picture of the painting. And, if you don't already have a high, well-liked account, a lot of followers, whatever, it's like, who's seeing that painting, Maybe by chance the algorithm will pick it up and maybe your painting will go viral, right? But then it's now this whole other thing of like, now we have to make a video for the painting. Now we have to show the process of how we made the painting and what went into the painting and the story behind the painting and how many, and it's like actually getting then a camera to record yourself doing the painting and then uploading it and editing it and then post it. Like, it's all now such a bigger process than, I don't know though, than what it was before, because I'm 26 years old. So I don't know what it was like to make art 20 years ago. Maybe it was different and maybe it was cooler. Like maybe that's when people actually hosted fashion shows that weren't sponsored by the New York Fashion Week, the Paris Fashion Week, like with these investors and stuff. Maybe people did, host their own neighborhood gallery shows, which people still do nowadays, but it's just different. Obviously, it's human nature, I think, to care what people think We're wired for validation and belonging and community, and obviously social media intensifies this with likes and comments and also false metrics of value, because Instagram will see that this post is being liked, so this is what it's going to show everyone, all the followers. And if one post is really good, maybe you posted something really amazing, but maybe not, it didn't get a lot of likes, so then it's not going to perform well, which is just frustrating. But I think what I'm realizing, what I'm trying to tell myself, is just to try and block that out. Like, try and let go of what people are thinking about what I'm making, because I think it starts to cloud my work, and it starts to then chase what's in rather than what feels right to me. I guess I do have an example of this, like, with my own career. I work in fashion and I have my own clothing line, and I would say last year I really owe it to the artist way. That is like something I would suggest to all artists and people who aren't artists too, because you'll find in that book that everyone is an artist. And some people don't practice their creativity or their art, but I would say that that's something that has changed my perspective the most in creating out of a place of pureness, if that makes sense. Like, that's the best way I can describe it. When I was doing the artist way, I found different activities that I loved to do. So I always wanted to take an improv class. That was really scary. I took an improv class. I started trying to learn how to play piano. I started playing tennis. Like, I was doing all of these things that you wouldn't think would have to do with my fashion design, right? But in doing those things and having play into my life and journaling every day, that has been like the one thing that has really changed my life the most, is the morning pages. And it's like a form of meditation almost, like just writing whatever comes to mind. And this way of like documenting your life and your thoughts and feelings when you were a certain age. Like, now I have a closet full of journals. I started about 2 years ago, I would say. And so I have journals from when I was 24, and I can read like what I was thinking about, what I was feeling every day. And it's incredibly validating to like see my own thoughts and go back and look at my own, like, what I was going through. Those are the things that have really changed my perspective on how do I create? What is my creative process? And I would say that when I was using that book and like utilizing a lot of the things that came with it, like going on the artist date, taking yourself out once a week for 2 hours alone, doing an activity, brought a lot of joy into my life and a lot of answers, honestly. Like, I remember I was so stuck on figuring out, I was doing a collection about, I thought I wanted to do something to do with like army or like military wear and like something to do with glamour. I was like, how can I blend those two together? And then I remember I was on an artist date. I went to go see the Powerpuff Girls movie in LA at New Beverly Cinema, and I went by myself. And afterwards, there was a store right next to it that I never would have walked in if I didn't like go on that solo date. I walk in there, it's an old military store, and I start to see Coast Guard uniforms. And I was like, oh, Coast Guard, like I could do something with the sea. And then I started thinking of mermaids, and I was like, wait, this is perfect. This is how I'm going to make everything make sense. This is how I'm going to be able to look at military wear and blend it into like glamour and higher fashion, but like girly. Like, I love blending those two together. So I was like, okay, this is how I'm gonna do it. And then I made this whole story of this sea captain who goes crazy at sea, and he starts to see these visions of these magical women. And then I started looking into fantasy movies, and I started, like, I didn't do any research on Pinterest or Instagram. I tried to like really watch old movies and go to the library. Like, the library is such a golden code, as I like to say, of like getting references and getting inspiration. It's like not that many people are doing it. Like, I mean, maybe they are, but I think that most people are looking at inspiration references online, which is fine, but like you might be seeing the same references that 100 more people are seeing, and then you start to see your idea, someone else made your idea because you guys all saw the same references online. So, you know, me making this, me saying this is also like a message for me to go back to myself. Like, this is what I need to do and what I need to hear, because I really don't want to care what people think. That's when I start to fall into making things based on like, if someone will buy this, if someone will wear this, which is like, it's a hard line, because like you want to have that marketing skill and you want to know about the business and what sells and like all of these things, because if you are an artist watching this who's trying to make a career out of it, it's like you do have to have these business elements too. Like, you have to be able to sell yourself. But I think, right, the key is compartmentalizing, like having a few months where it's like, okay, I'm just going to create for myself. I'm going to limit my social media time. I'm not going to look at certain people. Like, honestly, I think I might have to mute like certain people that I follow. No shade at all to them. It's because honestly, I'm jealous of what they're making. So I think I need to like mute them so that I don't see them right now, because it's messing with my ideas, to be honest, a little bit. Or it's like, damn, like that girl just designed that and put that out, or that girl just did that, and it's like, oh, it just takes away a little bit. So it's like, maybe I need to limit how much I see of it. But I think compartmentalizing and spending time, like having deadlines for yourself and like splitting it up between, okay, I'm gonna, like, if you're making a film, right, this is the time that I'm going to research and write and interview people and like, collect all the clues that you need to collect. And then once you start to make it, once you have the product, then I think that's when it comes into like marketing and how can I market this and how can I do this. This is just my own opinion. And I think also too, like once you have the funds and the means to, hire someone to help you, maybe it's hiring a marketing person that works 5 hours a week for you or something more manageable like that, then I think it becomes less about how am I going to get rich off of this than like, let me just make this because this feels good for me to create. I feel like your audience finds you by you being authentic, not by playing safe or pretending to be, likable or something else that maybe inspired you to become that. Like, I think it's all about being yourself and doing things that you love and things you think look good. And, like I said, it's not easy by any means. Like, this is difficult, especially like if you are a creative person. Most likely you are maybe more sensitive to your environment or your ideas, or maybe sometimes feeling insecure about what you're making. I feel like that's a whole nother thing, is like, honestly, like from personal experience, when I've made something I'm not proud of, it's always because when I was making it, it wasn't coming from a true place of what like fed my soul. And sometimes though, we still have to put things out that maybe we don't love. Like, this is another book reference, but The Creative Act by Rick Rubin, he talks about how you just have to keep putting it out. Like, you just have to keep going and can't just judge like one work as that being all of you. It's like your whole life's work. You put out something and maybe it's and then the next thing you like are really proud of it. Like, think about when you go to a museum of an artist and you see like works you've never seen of theirs before, and it's really cool to see like their old like bad work. Maybe it's not even bad to you, but now you see like their great amazing stuff, but you see that it took them making all of this stuff to make the big amazing things. And I really feel like I'm speaking to myself here, because sometimes I get so paralyzed trying to make something because I'm like, oh, it's not going to be good, or oh, like the idea is not good anymore, or I'm not going to know how to do that, I'm not going to know how. It's like, yeah, and then I just sit there and I didn't make anything. So it's like, I know what I'm capable of, and I think it's really just starting and picking up and just doing it, and like not really having expectations for yourself. And honestly, just like channeling, an inner child, thinking of it more almost like a craft. Like, I'm just going to do this in my free time, and I'm going to have so much fun, and I'm going to play music, and I'm going to, I don't know, like whatever feeds your soul and like what you love to do, I think honestly is the key. So asking yourself, like, who are you making this for? Are you making this to get someone else's approval or someone's like or someone's comment? Because then it kind of changes like what you actually want to make. I also feel like when you create out of something so original and from yourself, it's more timeless rather than you seeing what other people are doing or what other people might like. Then it becomes more like trendy and of the time, like, you know. So also I'm thinking of a cool thing to tap into making something kind of risky is like, I don't know, like even from your journaling is, you know, saying the thing that you're afraid to say sometimes, or the thing that you're afraid to admit that maybe isn't true, but you just need to let out, right? It's like using that and making something from that, like letting that be your story. Because I feel like if you're not risking criticism, maybe it's not saying enough. And maybe you do need to stop watering down your ideas for approval. You know, some of my biggest inspirations in fashion are Alexander McQueen and Vivienne Westwood. And I feel like they did not give a from like what anyone thought of what they were making, and they got tons of bad reviews in the beginning, and now of course people can see the great, and I mean even like early back then they had like cult like followings, because that's what happens when you create something so deeply personal. Then you attract the people who you want to be in, like who you want to like your art anyway. Yeah, like sometimes I think about, oh, like whose approval am I wanting? Like, I mean, I know personally in my head, like maybe some people I want to like my stuff, but then I think like, okay, I don't know. And maybe it's because I'm holding myself to such a high standard, or maybe it's because I really like their work and I'm like, oh, like I want them to like me and my stuff. And it's like, I don't know. It seems like that would be exhausting to kind of just like keep creating, and it feels more free and more liberating, a place of like true, it's like I see it almost. And you know, I don't know if this is gonna make sense to anyone watching, but it's like my vision or my creativity like comes from this place within, and it's almost like this world that I would want to go to, or like this thing I want to build, you know. Like sometimes, you know, objects would remind me of the world that I'm trying to build, or books. Like these two objects live in my creative vision world of like the pieces that I'm trying to create in my fashion, or the shoots that I'm trying to do. So I think that it is personal to me, and it has been a lot of like looking into my childhood and looking at the things that inspired me and the things that I loved. And I love storytelling and writing things, and you know, making it all feel like more rich and having more things involved in it, and not just like designing a t-shirt that will go viral. Like, you know, it's like, no, maybe something that I make inspired by this box like is going to feel deeply, deeply personal to me, and I'm going to post it, and someone else is going to see it and be like, whoa, like they're going to get that feeling that I get, or, you know, their own perspective. And so I think that is my answer to myself, is for me to just keep making the things I want to make and hoping that it resonates with someone. But at the end of the day, like, I feel like, and this is something I learned from The Artist Way, as I create and listen, I will be led. And I think maybe that sounds cliche, but it's true. It's like, as I keep creating more and more, even if it's bad, it taught me something. It led me something. I posted it, like, okay, this is a perfect example, and I'll end it with this. Last year, I applied to Central St. Martin's for the master's program, and I wanted to go here so bad, like so bad. I worked so hard on my portfolio, but it was honestly the most excruciating, like mentally painful thing I've ever done, because just trying to like fit your process and your brain and your creative thinking into a 25-page portfolio with not a lot of guidelines of like format, like it was so difficult. Like I spent literally like 500 hours on the whole thing, not just like the portfolio. But anyway, the point is, I created all of this stuff, right? Because I wanted to go to this school. I didn't get in. They only accept, I think, like 30 people for the master's program. And it's all meant to be, right? It's all meant to be, because throughout that process of me making that portfolio, I really like found my creative voice, and I figured out like, oh, like this is what I'm trying to build. Like, I love this like fantasy fairy tale storyline, and that is really what I went with for this collection. So anyway, I didn't get in, but I did post online my work, and I didn't make any of those pieces to be on sale or to be styled on anyone. I made those for my application, right? I was supposed to be showing my personality, my vision, all this stuff. And it ended up doing so well, like online, and all of these fashion accounts started posting it, and I got, DMs from different celebrity stylists, and I ended up getting a piece on Chapel Roan, Charlie XCX, Tinashe, Julia Fox, these different people, and I could have never imagined. And it was because I didn't create anything for them. It was like something that I loved and felt like needed to come out of me. And so I just posted it on my Instagram, and it somehow, there were no hashtags or no sending it to accounts to repost, no boosting, no ads. And I feel like that is the key. And recently I put out a new sort of miniature collection where I think I lost my plot a little. Not that I tried to make more commercial pieces, and I still believe in them, and I think they're still amazing and awesome, but I was trying to make them more marketable and more people to buy and whatever, because I thought, but hey, I'm still glad they're still on the website. You can still look at them. I'm still proud of them, and I'm still creating like this whole brand image of myself and my clothing, and so I'm proud of that. But I would say that it got less traction online, and I'm curious about that. Like, is it because, like the pieces from before were more artisanal and they were made by my hands, and these other pieces are still made by me, like the first sample, but they're more wearable. Like the first collection was like runway type of thing, or like people are pulling them for music videos and shoots, but this one is more like you can just buy it and wear it every day. So yeah, but it's all a process, and I'm not going to give up, and this is like my sign, I think, me making this is like, I really don't want to care what people think, because it has made my art worse before. Not now, but there has been times where, yeah, it didn't make it to what I truly felt in my soul and my heart. So hopefully you learned something from this, and thanks for listening.